George's buildings, as with his furniture, when you're using them, they are to help you contemplate. A chair, the way it receives you, you relax, calm yourself, but you maintain your dignity and your alertness. A table is like an altar, and the objects on the table that you might be using one way or another are to be considered sacred, and the table helps you experience objects that way. A cabinet is to take away the clutter and put precious objects in a safe place, honoring them. George's watershed experience in India in practicing Sri Aurobindo's yoga was building a building. That was the yoga. So it was meant to be a spiritual exercise that disciples engaged in, so that not only the final result, but the work itself was to be done in a certain way that was conducive to spiritual development in contact with the material world. So that once the building was finished, those that lived in it should carry on their sadhana, and the building would be conducive to that. But the actual work and construction was to be done in such a way that the building would be infused with that spirit. So whenever George designed or built from that time forth, it was always with that in mind, with that approach in mind, that the building, the spirit in which it was built, the way in which it was built, was integral to the spirit of the building and the final result, so that the approach to material, the awareness of the spirit in the material, the proportions. As Bill Whitaker, the archivist at University of Pennsylvania, his comment was, there was no redundancy. So that each part of it is done in a conscious way, relating it to the whole. Each part is making its contribution. Well, I think what George was wanting to connect with was, as the title of his book indicates, the soul of the tree.
I'll try an 18.
Thor?
Yeah. George, happy birthday. Yeah, I got called about like 2.5, 3-inch stock for like
Hey, bud.
legs.
We cut each tree, each piece is individual. I get kind of personal with the pieces. We get excited over seeing different patterns in the grain. Okay, so far so good. These pieces are beautiful, they're magnificent.
My father was trying to decide what he wanted to do next in his life. He hadn't studied furniture design per se, but he decided to drop architecture as a profession and go into furniture. He said to me later that it was the same as architecture, only smaller, and he could control it from beginning to end. And actually that makes it kind of complicated because we still start out with the log itself. We buy the logs whole and mill them. Then we have to dry them and wait for the right client to come along and select each piece of lumber for each job individually. And then we design each piece of furniture individually before it goes into production. So this is what we call the pole barn. When my father passed in 1990, he had a huge pile of wood that he had sawn, and it is actually our legacy, which we inherited from my father. It's our source of inspiration. Whenever we have orders to fill, we have to come out here and sort through the wood pile and see what kind of wood we can use to do that project.
Says he sits at his desk angled to the left and writes with his right hand. So you would like it to have like a little curve out on the left side.
Uh-huh.
I was looking at,
The one on the bottom.
yeah, on the bottom. This one kind of rolls
Uh-huh.
here. Where else was I looking? Is that up there? Oh, no, it was up front. You want to pull that olive? Yeah. I'll find this.
We feel like Dad's still watching over us. We're still working on his wood. We're still working on his inspiration. And it's not just inspiration of the design, but it's the way we work with wood. I mean, Dad felt that even when he was alive, we were working against the modern ethos of technology and mass production and trying to make as much money as possible. It was more important to him to make something of quality than it was to make something, it was to make a lot of money. He says, well, couldn't you do it with money? The best thing you can do is buy some beautiful wood or have some beautiful land and, of course, build beautiful buildings. So he lived his dream, and we hope to continue that dream into the future.
Is that enough of a swoop?
I think so. Oh, that one's cut right
The ones that have that cut, yeah. I don't know if that works out to be on the left side or not. Might be a little too much angle into the body there. Yeah, some of the wood will sit in here for decades waiting for the right project. Some of it is here for a few hours and gets used for something.
Cool.
I'd take those.
So would I.
It's definitely unique. The pile you're standing behind is Persian walnut that has been here for 50 years. Can't be gotten again.
Would you be able to forklift a crate?
I mostly grew up in Bucks County. I attended a local Quaker high school that had a wonderful woodworking program and studio. So I took woodworking during my time there.
Thank you so much. No problem. Thanks, Mike. Sure.
And loved it, and always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to, get back into it at some point. I've had a pretty intimate relationship with the wood since I've been here, since I, started working in the pole barn, and, continue to do so and do a lot of the wood selection and lumber inventory and management. And so, it's a special place for, especially out in the pole barn there. The story of the wood from start to finish. It's definitely easy to still get lost in the work. I've heard Mira say that one of the reasons why she wanted to carry on was, she felt a obligation to the wood, and I feel a little bit of that as well.
Here we get to work the whole process all the way through. Growing up, I just enjoyed watching my grandfather do woodworking. Went to college, got a bachelor's in fine arts, actually a drawing degree. Did sculpture, wood design, and needed a job, simply put. I've taken a lot of time and effort through the years to learn their ways, learn the furniture, the new and the old, move myself into the refinishing. So I get to see a little bit of everything, and it's fun, to learn. And I focused 27 years around learning everything I could about this place, seeing how it was done in the past to how we do it now. I mean, it's just phenomenally interesting. And I had Jerry that helped coach me along. We had Adam and Bob Eisler. I would say the thing I find most meaningful here is doing the training, helping the new guys come in and succeed and do a really good job. I mean, it's stressful, but it's probably most rewarding when they come out doing really good work and they're learn the process, learn how the Nakashima furniture is built, try to continue those traditions, keep them in place so it doesn't evolve through everybody's little nuances into something else that's not Nakashima. And it's a tough thing to do. Everybody has their own little thing, which, yes, is a part of each piece, but to what extent? And it's trying to keep it so at the end of the day, it's Nakashima furniture.
I had a lot of different jobs in my 20s. I started really getting into woodworking. I started taking classes at Bucks County Community College. At one point, I just decided I wanted to do this for work professionally. So I started looking. Fortunately, this place actually had an opening. It was amazing that this was the place that I was able to start. I started in 1999. The work requires you to be really perceptive and just in tune with what you're doing. You never stop improving your craft. You can never sort of just coast through it. You just have to kind of take your time and take care and make sure everything is done to the best of your ability. It's still really satisfying to see the finished product at the end. I still love all the designs that we do here, and sometimes I'm still inspired by a particular piece of wood with amazing figure, beautiful grain pattern. The skill set grows all the time. That's what I like about it. You never stop learning. There's always more to learn. You always feel like you can do just a little bit better, and that's kind of the thrill of it.
I was just newly married, and my wife and I had just moved to the area. I was doing refinishing and some restoration. And then my wife, by chance, saw an ad in the newspaper where they were looking for a finisher. And I had no idea. And, I showed up and had an interview with Mira. Either she or somebody else took me into the finishing room to show me the furniture, and I was just blown away. I thought, it was incredible. It's nice to be able to focus on things and that we can do it in such a beautiful setting. Everybody's always helping everybody out or, answering questions so yeah, it's like a small family. You're definitely being trained and shown what to do, but, by showing up and doing it every day, you're putting it to work. being here and working here it's a special place to be.
As a kid, I loved playing with Legos and building houses of cards and things like that, constantly drawing. I had an excellent woodshop teacher in high school. He really encouraged me to stick through the program. They even made more classes for me. And my family has a home remodeling business in Philadelphia, so I would spend my summer jobs as a kid going there, working with the carpenters. So I got to work with hand tools and learn the tricks of the trade. After high school, I went to college. I studied fine art, focusing in sculpture and painting. After I graduated, went back to work. Now in the real world, banging nails and getting all kinds of demolition dust and debris on me and in my lungs, and quickly realized that I didn't want to do that. Started going door to door, handing my resumes out. My employer had a friend that knew of an opportunity here, and I was hired as an apprentice woodworker and building restorationist. 7 years later, here I am. Where I find the most meaning working here is their philosophy as a whole, how they treat the woodworkers, how they treat the furniture, and how important it is to make exquisite work and the patience it requires to accomplish that. Being here has reassured me this lifestyle of focus and calm and precision is out there. It's attainable. I've really found a great spot to be me, to work with creative people, skilled people, kind people. Yeah, it's great.
I worked in a couple of nonprofits for about 8 years, and right when I turned 30, I decided that I was done with office work and quit and started going to school at Bucks County Community College, which has a wonderful arts and woodworking program. And from there, I went to a school in Maine, the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship. When I came back, I ran into John Lutz, our general manager, and he told me they were hiring, and it just kind of worked out where I was and in my new career path and what Nakashima was looking for, and I really lucked out. I have a job that is almost unimaginable to think of. Like, when I was going to school and knowing about Nakashima and knowing that it was down the street from one of the schools I went to, and accessible to me from Philadelphia, never in my dreams would I have been like, oh yeah, they hire people to build. Like, they hire people like me to build. I think I've learned to slow down, step back, take a look at the piece, be intentional with my decisions. What really pulls me here is our approach, the intention we put into each piece that drives us to make sure it's right.
From Ohio, Northern Ohio, in Lake Erie, a small town called Sandusky. Studied interior design, undergrad, architecture grad school. And then I worked in offices for a while. It wasn't for me. Started transitioning to the field, where I started doing woodworking, art installations, furniture making. Prior to coming here, I was restoring historic structures up and down the East Coast for about 3.5 years. Anything from a lighthouse to churches, arches over small towns, things of that nature, which was really, really an experience. That experience in both design, furniture, art, historic restoration, it kind of all works here. I feel very lucky to have like all of my past experiences kind of utilized in this environment here. It's a place of both patience. It's very calm, peaceful, focused, and that's day to day. Also the continuation of what George started, and being able to do that, to continue his work, and then also to be trusted with his work by both Mira and Jonathan. That's incredibly meaningful. Probably more so than anything else, and it's an honor. I'm doing a drawing for a king headboard. This is an end matched headboard. This is Mira's sketch here, if you want to pan down to that. This is American English walnut, so the end grain will be matching as opposed to the grain on the free edge on the sides. We draw everything by hand. The boards that I'm drawing are here. There's one. Coming here initially, and I still see it in those clients of ours or visitors that their first time here, there's this, they get quieter, they walk slower. There's a sense of awe and astonishment, especially when you open the pole barn and they get to see the wood. That I get to relive that each time. I think that sense of excitement, of beauty, it's a place that allows you to take that external viewpoint and kind of focus it inward. That's good. Draw our center line. Now I'm rethinking the whole thing.
I've always been interested in wood. I was a little kid. When I was, I don't know, maybe junior, no, before that, maybe sophomore year in high school, I was really kind of narrowing in. And my cousin, who used to work for George, Jimmy Radcliffe, gave me one of George's books. And I was like, who is this guy? And Jimmy would always say, hey, you got to come to Nakashima, you got to see it. And as a kid and living in Abington, I was too busy. I was so into what I was doing in my wood. I was like, I'm not going to drive to New Hope, or I'm not, get my parents to drive me to New Hope. And around the same time, I saw Esherick, and I saw the Esherick Museum. And that's when I was like, I want to be these dudes. And then I ended up at RIT, School of American Craftsmen, and I was not looking back. I was going to be doing what George and Esherick that was my inspiration, the craft kind of environment. And I ended up with Thomas Moser, which was a great environment. And Tom and I he was like my second dad. It was just such a wonderful family-run business, incredibly close community. And then my folks became ill, and I had to really relocate in Philadelphia. And then, lo and behold, I come to Nakashima's. And Mira, we had a few conversations, and at that time, she was like, hey, everybody's telling me to go CNC, and I need to increase production. I said, Mira, don't do any of that. Look what you have. Just do what you're doing and embrace the community. Kind of taking little of the community and the craft pieces that I've always had in my life and just combining the two. And then 6-8 months later, Mira gives me a call and says, how would you like to manage the company? I'm gonna go. When I first came on, just seeing the level of craft and doing it old school from the standpoint of pulling it all together, from the logs to lumber and to finding trees and to milling the slabs, and knowing that the slabs, we won't, after we mill a tree, we're not going to see that slab for 3-4 years. I mean, it's just a fascinating long-term approach to a business structure versus calling a lumberyard and having it delivered. We are so focused on the material, total reverence for the material. Having lived in Maine for 18 years and building my own house and renovating a couple of old antique capes, this was like a, wow, I get to do my woodworking, I get to hang out in a community, and I get to take care of buildings. What a great plan is that? But I soon realized that I had no ability whatsoever to understand preservation architecture from a high level. I contacted University of Penn, their architectural department. So we have a full preservation plan. We now extended our relationship with Penn. They're doing a full energy audit, and our goal is to significantly reduce our carbon footprint. We're going to be installing solar panels on the pole barn, and we are moving to full solar. We have a great group. We know how to hire. We know how to train. We now, over the course of the years, we know how to preserve the buildings. We have a full-time guy that's here all the time, Johnny Fresco, to be able to take care of these buildings. George designed and built these buildings on his own, on a shoestring. I think George was just so enjoying the moment. You know, this was fun. This was a project. And when you're a woodworker and you finish the project, you want to move to the next thing on your bench.
There was only 2 people working in the office when I first started, about 20 years ago, exactly 20 years ago. Also, my husband was also working in the office too, but he worked also, later he worked in the other department, making chairs and other stuff, and then design. I used to say that for what brings me here, to find love. So this was the big change for me. I lived in the cities in the past, and this small town New Hope was a big adjustment. My first job was cleaning and mowing the lawn in a tractor. We had to do everything. And then now we have more people. We have a bookkeeper, we have general manager, and then we do have also authentication and archivist. So my job is more focused on now on sales. I really like my day here every day, working in the office and also interact with our clients from all over the world, and they're the best. You know, I learn a lot from them. I'm in perfect place actually. Every day is so great.
This is a pretty one, yeah. And look at this. Did you see the way she filled it?
I did see that, yeah.
It must have been a hole where the leg was supposed to go.
Wasn't enough space to put it in, so she just filled it.
Yeah. This is pretty too. It's just plain black walnut, but it's nice. It has this. Jerry used to call this highball coloring. Thank you.
My name is Katsutoshi Amagasu. George was my great-grandfather. Mira is my grandmother. Sumi and Rue are my parents, and I'm here.
This is part of my work. I tag the pieces, so these are some of our finished pieces, and I just take the dimensions of the piece. I'll classify the wood. This one's obviously black walnut. And then this one is yet to be priced. I have to give them to Nana to price them, and she's already signed this one. So, yeah. Oh, I also have to take photos of them and put them in our database, which is fun. I would see people come in week after week and enjoy the property, and I get to take them around, and they, see things that they've never seen before, and their eyes swell up and they, smile because it's just something that's completely brand new to them. And I can also remember lots of family coming in from all over the world and having them here and experience something that I've experienced for my entire life, and they see as something that's spectacular and brand new. It's so fun to see. I value nature quite a bit, although I am sort of an indoor cat. I've always been somebody that's realized the beauty in nature, and as a Boy Scout, I really liked it, and I can actually remember when I was a kid at this pond, I would play with rocks and make little sculptures and stuff like that, and just sit out and watch them as they tumbled with the water.
Do you communicate with your great-grandfather?
I think I do. I think we all communicate with him. I remember a few years ago, it was his birthday, we went down to the graveyard and said hi, and I definitely could feel him. And I know he's watching, and I hope he's proud. When I was younger, I couldn't believe that I had never met him, because I could swear I could see his face in my memory.
I've been doing woodworking, in school since about the 3rd grade, and I've always enjoyed that. It was always fun to create for me, and so working in the shop, it's pretty rewarding. The most meaningful part of working here for me, it's always been interacting with people. My mom is obviously sales, and she's dealt with literally every customer that's come in through here for quite a while, and through that, I've been able to interact with a lot of cool people, and telling them about my slice of the planet is kind of fun.
Before I moved to the States, I lived in France for a few years. And I'd just gone with my son, who was in a stroller, to the Musée d'Orsay and was looking at their Art Nouveau rooms that they had. And whilst walking back to my metro station, I was walking on the left bank, and in the furniture store, very upmarket store, there was this beautiful table sitting in the window. And I stopped and I tried to go in and was stopped by a very officious Parisian who said I couldn't go in with my son. So I was asking him in my very bad French about the table. And he wrote down a name on a post-it, George Nakashima. So after that, I had to go and research and find out more about it. So learned a little about George Nakashima and his work, and have always loved it and loved the aesthetic. And then lo and behold, we get transferred to the States, and I end up just down the road, which was interesting for me. So you fast forward 20 years, kids are grown, I'm working in a job that I was very, very happy in, and everyone gets these emails, so-and-so's looking for a bookkeeper, and most of the time I just delete, because I was happy where I was. And then one day in the subject line of one of these LinkedIn emails was George Nakashima Woodworkers, and I think I hyperventilated for about half an hour and then answered the email. It's wonderful working with so many creative people. Bookkeeping, I've always said, is can be very dry, and it's very dependent on the business you're working in. It's like active history. I don't know if that makes sense. It's being able to see the process of the creation and seeing the people working on the furniture and seeing the joy of people coming to collect what they've been so involved in the creation of is wonderful. It gives meaning, interest to the job.
I grew up in Yardley, just south of here, and my parents, who were very frugal, simple Pennsylvania Germans, would occasionally, as we drove by on Aquatung Road, would go, "Oh, that's Nakashima's where they make the really expensive furniture." I wish they were customers of George back then, but they weren't. After various adventures, I moved back to this area. I would stop by the studio on their Saturday afternoon open hours between 1 and 4:30, and always admired the work. Due to George's success and worldwide popularity, there are lots of people copying George's work. Kevin Nakashima came up with a funny term. He called it knockoff Ashimas. My advice to everybody is don't buy a piece unless it comes with the original paperwork, which was given to the original client, or you have a copy of the original order card on letterhead from us, proving that it was made here. And that's one thing that makes this place really unique, is that we're small enough that we get to know the customers one-on-one. They work with Mira and her design team. If they need authentication services, they work with the people here in the office. One of the great things about working here, you're doing something new every day, something different every day. So you never know who you're going to meet. You never know when you're going to find another piece that's going to pop up on the secondary market, something really beautiful that you didn't know about. I'm just always amazed by what George was able to accomplish, and I'm always disappointed I never got a chance to meet him in person.
Since the passing of Kevin in 2020, he was the last resident of the family house. It's been my responsibility to document the things in the house, the documents, the belongings. It's something that probably will take a long time. Mira and I are working slowly to uncover things. You don't want to disturb things too much. There's a lot in the files and the things that they collected and the places they visited. It's really a treasure hunt every single day. Working with an archivist, we need to make sure that we're following all the right procedures and policies to make sure that we don't carelessly toss something. We have a whole file on the family's experiences in Minidoka, in the Japanese internment camps. There are files that explain how this particular site was built over the decades. So there's a lot of really valuable information. Well, every day I walk in here, I feel like I bow my head to the legacy here. The family's spirit and presence is everywhere in the house. I am surrounded by incredible beauty and peace. I work specifically for the Nakashima Foundation for Peace, and it is the foundation's mission to preserve the historic site, but also to preserve the legacy of George and Mira. So I feel it's my job and my honor to have some impact on how we move forward.
First came with my father, who was an architect practicing in Philadelphia and was bringing the family out to Bucks County. Actually, my parents bought an old barn along this same ridge, about a mile to the west. So coming out to look at the property, we stopped to see what George was all about, and that was my first visit. And then coming back later to work in the area, and was working in landscaping, and I was laid off for the winter, and knocked on the door, asked if I could work. And George said, "You can start in 2 weeks." So that was almost 50 years ago. Still here. From my experience, Nakashima's woodworkers grew out of the ashes of World War II. My mentors here were all from cultures that suffered during the war, and personally they suffered. George was, as a Japanese American, was interned in a concentration camp. Adam Martini, of German heritage, was in a concentration camp after the war. Mario Gioia was in a concentration camp as an Italian in Yugoslavia. So they were, in a sense, all refugees coming to new hope. George would often say he felt like a peasant. He wanted to live like a peasant, close to the earth, keeping things simple, earn his daily bread. All three of them had a deep Catholic faith and bonded here in the work on the basis of that faith. So that was a great insight for me to see how, from very difficult situations, you can not only recover your life, but you can thrive in a whole new situation. George partly because he is Japanese, and Japanese have an understanding of the spirits in nature around them, specifically in wood, Japan traditionally being a wood culture. But George had this affinity for trees and seeing the divine quality in trees. This dialogue that was established between the human spirit and the spirit in the tree be such that the spirit of a man would come out to engage the tree. And in this dialogue, you're set free, in a sense, from your duality, because it's not you and the tree as object, it's you as spirit and tree as spirit, which becomes your union. The tree then becomes a mirror of your own soul, and you bypass through the craft your own conceptual perspective, so that you lose yourself and then find yourself because of this circular motion of your spirit contacting the tree and the spirit of the tree coming back to you. And hopefully the record of this encounter is reflected in the piece that's created.
There were so many so-called unknown craftsmen who worked with my father and made his work possible. I mean, he wouldn't have gotten anywhere without the men who worked with him. In the beginning, it was a one-man workshop because he just started off on his own. And then as time went on, he gathered more and more people. I was an only child until I was about 13. So the fellows in the shop were my best friends. And, well, I don't know if they were friends or not. I used to pester them. The shop was at the house, so I'd go visit and see what they were up to and pester them a little bit. And then in the summertime, my mother would put me to work and make me serve them Kool-Aid, because it was so hot in the afternoon. So we'd take a Kool-Aid break, and that was my job. And Bob Lovett was one of our early employees. He's one of the people who helped my father build almost every single building on the property. He was a wonderful craftsman. He had this Quaker attitude. He didn't work very quickly, and if you asked him a question, he would answer it at great length as to how the best way to do things were and why you did things that way. And he was a wonderful, just sort of calming employee to have around. And he worked on the buildings, and then towards the end of his life, he worked in the shop, and he was an excellent cabinet maker. Not everybody can make cabinets, but he was really good at it. I guess that's partly because he was used to building buildings, and all the joints had to fit properly. Adam Martini is one of those refugees from Austria who had been trained in Austria before he came. And he was in the workshop for a while. He could make basically anything in the shop, but my father put him in the chair department because he was really fast and very accurate. He trained my husband John, as John may have mentioned, and he trained a lot of other people too. And Adam was instrumental in making the first conoid chair. It was an ongoing collaborative process, and when my father passed away in 1990, it was Adam and Jerry, and sometimes, I don't remember if Mario was still around or not, but I had to consult with them many, many times when I was doing drawings because I didn't know the construction details. The drawings were on little 5x7 sheets of paper with a freeform sort of perspective of what this piece of furniture was supposed to be. And as time went on, because he sent me to architectural school, I said, I think you need to put some more details on the drawings because that worked when he was there. There weren't too many employees. There weren't a whole lot of pieces going through, and he was in the shop all day, every day. So he could tell them what to do next when they got to a certain point. I thought it would be better to at least specify some of the dimensions, and then if we needed to, we could change them as on the bench as necessary. John Lutz, our manager, came in. He wanted us to stay a very craftsmanly sort of workshop. And in order to do that, you had to have employees who were dedicated to the craft and didn't want to go into mass production. And it's been a wonderful transition to this collaborative ideal in the workshop. Each person who's come in has had their own particular skills, which they've added to our knowledge. It's so exciting to watch this wood come to life with each coat of oil. And that's one of the beautiful things about an oil finish too, is it penetrates the wood and you get to see deeper and deeper into the life of this tree as the finishing process goes on. I hope that you will appreciate your furniture more by knowing what went into it and knowing the people whose heart and souls and lives went into making this furniture. It's the life of the tree for sure, and it's my dad's guiding hand for sure, but it's also the hands of all the workers who've been with us who made it possible. Thank you.